Welcome, welcome. In this video, you're going to learn about the poem Rong Radio Station, written by Benjamin Zephaniah, the Jamaican origin UK poet. If you watch this video till the end, you will get a very good understanding from the examination point of view, and you can face the exam and write it well. I have divided this class into 6. In the first part, we'll discuss about the author, then we'll discuss about the context of the poem, then move on to discuss about the central argument, what are the major themes, then we will have a quick run through the poem with summary, and finally we'll discuss about form and language and wind up. Before that, I want to really thank you for being here with me today. And if you don't know me, you are for the first time here. My name is Pradeep Hariharan. I'm an assistant professor of English who likes creating video content in literature, book reviews, and on career. There are 6 things that we have to learn about Benjamin Zephaniah. First one, he is a British poet, musician, children's writer, anti-racist, and activist of Barbadian and Jamaican descent. And Zephaniah is one of the key figures in a political movement which is known as infra-political blackness. It's a form of resistance against political subjectivity. Zephaniah is regarded as one of the greatest 50 post-war writers of Britain. And another thing is that he's one of the most popularly seen poet because he is also a performance poet. And he calls his style as street politics. Zephaniah has been deeply involved in what you may call multiracial black British social movements. So he's an activist and a poet and a performer who is trying to break many stereotypes about black people. According to his definition of poetry is that poetry is not for the academia. It is for everyone, regardless of their age, race, and identity. So he started as a performer in 1970 with his tradition of dub poetry. Now we move on to the second concept. What is the context of writing this poem? This is a very important part. Actually, this poem is written as a form of justice for Michael Powell campaign. This Michael Powell campaign is very important. In 2003, a black man named as Michael Powell, who was suffering from a serious bout of depression, and his aunt called the police for helping him. When the police came and saw this man's what you may call reactions, they shot him dead. And for 3 years, the case was fought in the court, and finally court acquitted all the police officers, especially the white police officers involved in Michael Powell case. So this poem comes out in the year 2007 as a kind of what you may call a protest. It was published as an online musical video. The footage is available on YouTube, and you can see what happens there. So the basic reason is that because at that time, this music industry, especially video music industry, was dominated by MTV and Vevo TV. So he wanted to popularize his ideas. So he published it in an alternative platform and popularizes it. So ultimately, the central theme of the poem is about the life of multiracial black people in Britain. And you have to understand how their life changed after the 11/9 attack in America. One of the things that Zephaniah tries to tell is that after 9/11 attack in America, the life of black people in UK underwent a gradual shift. Because from then onwards, they started to face a discrimination based on their religion too. As you know, most of the African countries are Muslim-dominated countries. So they never had to face that issue before this, what you may call, attack, 11/9 attack. After that, there was a collective targeting of Muslim communities as terror suspects. And the British state was not ready to accept the issue as racial discrimination. So this context is very important for a clear-cut understanding about this poem. Now move on to the next thing. What is the central argument? What is he trying to convey? Actually, he is looking at the Western ideology, the great tradition, the great philosophy of Western ideology, and he is mocking at them for treating and creating the other, especially what you may call creating Islamophobia. That is collectively targeting blanketly targeting all Muslim as terror suspects. And secondly, it speaks about the criminalization of black people. So coming to the major themes of this poem, we have two here. One is that ultimately he wants to speak about the state violence, racial domination of particular people, and media misrepresentation of people of color in Britain. It's very important how media represents. Today, all the truth is created, truth or post-truth, by media. So ultimately, he realizes that. And secondly, he also critiques the Western global order that is engaged in militaristic imperialism, counter-terrorism, and securitization discourses in the name of war on terror. So ultimately, from the period the poem is written and the things that happened, we can clearly understand how this poem contextualized in the Western concept of war on terror and the media misrepresentation and also racial domination and discrimination. Let's go into the poem, and in this part of the video, we are just trying to go through the poem, an analysis, not a line by line, but stanza wise. It's taken from For Nonviolent Revolution, Peace News. I acknowledge them, and Wrong Radio Station, the spelling, as you can clearly see. He starts with a self-examination. That is the first line. My ears are battered and burned, and I have just learned I have been listening to the wrong radio station. So what is the what is radio stands for? Radio station stands for you cannot have a feedback to it. You can only listen. So most of these Western ideologies or media are something like that. They don't listen to the other people. They just give their views. They feed our minds with their own ideology, and how we fall prey to their ideology because most of them work on our emotion. He says, my mind has been brutalized. Now the pain can't be disguised. I have been listening to the wrong radio station. So you can see, just like Edgar Allan Poe in The Raven, he repeats the same line again and again. He is, confessing. He feels bad. Oh my God, I have been listening to the wrong radio station. I have been listening to the wrong thing. I have been listening to the wrong thing. Repeatedly. It's like a way of that you punish yourself. Oh my God, why have I been thinking like that? Why have I been thinking like that? So then he starts what the Western education has done to him in the next line. I was beginning to believe that all black men were bad men and all white men would reign again. I was beginning to believe that I was a mindless drug freak, because all the black people, they were treated like drug freaks that couldn't control my sanity or my sexuality, how black people are animalized. I was beginning to believe that I could not believe in nothing except nothing. And all I ever wanted to do was to get you and do you. I have been listening to the wrong. So he has been making a self-interrogation about what he has been doing, how his identity has lost. My future has been blighted, because that is what education tells you. The more educated, the more your future will be bright. Okay, I have been listening to the wrong radio station. I was beginning not to trust me. That is where his realization comes in. How he lost his self-identity, his background, his original, authentic, his culture. So he says, why? Because I have been dancing to the music that I can't stand. Actually, he was just pretending to be a white man, but just like a mimic man, written by Ashish Nandi. He has been just mimicking. Then I have been reciting commercials to my girlfriend, and I have been trying to convince myself that what I really needed is a sunbird and a mortgage and some hairspray, the kind of hairspray that will wash my grey blues away. So ultimately, he has got this curly hair, and there is a belief that only straightened hair is more stylistic, and the curly hairs are not. So today it's opposite. That is at that time. Then he says how he was trying to convince himself that I could ease my conscience, because what do you do when you get prick of conscience? To do charity. So he says he could give a few penance to hungry baby in Africa, that being an African, he has to feed an African to get good conscience. So that is the irony comes in. That is how the media brainwashes a person to think differently. And because African babies needed my favors. That's the kind of feeling we have. All in Africa are starving. All of them are always looking for others. There are some people, obviously, but also the other side is also there. Because Africa is full of dictators. There is no democracy. Globalization will bring salvation. Okay. Then I have been listening to the wrong radio station. I thought my neighbors formed an axis of evil. I wanted to go kill people. I have been listening to the wrong radio. Here he speaks about the next topic of the poem, which is war on terror. So why is my mind going stale? I have been listening to wrong. So ultimately he says, after listening to this wrong ideas and studying this, he lost his self-identity and his mind went stale. And I was beginning to believe that Muslims were terrorists. This is where that ideology of war on terror comes in. All Muslims, looking at all Muslims as terrorists. And Christian terrorists didn't exist. I really did believe that terrorism couldn't be done by governments. Actually, what the West has done to the other nations like Iraq and in Afghanistan is also terrorism. But they do not call it as terrorism, but they call it as war on terror. So I really did believe that terrorism couldn't be done by governments. That means terrorism can be done by governments also, not our governments, not white governments. I just could not see what was wrong with me. So this is a poem of self-realization and ultimately reaching his real identity. And if you watch the music video, you can see that it starts from a Muslim man standing in a railway station. He's carrying a suspicious packet in his hand. Then you see a black woman in her home alone, browsing through a magazine. Then you again see this man. He's traveling through train and he's walking through the streets. And in the background, he remembers the torture that he has to undergo. And finally, he reaches his home. And he opens his mysterious cover and takes the key and opens the room. And inside the home, he see the black lady waiting for him. Actually, this man looks like an Asian man. And they hug and he gives her a ring. So ultimately, the poet wanted to tell that all these people have got normal lives. On the contrary, he also presents a white man, two white men going to their office carrying a suitcase. So ultimately, there is a montage technique. One side, a man's real life is torture, how he has been tortured just because he belongs to a religion, and how he leads a life, an interracial life. So these are all happening in the world. But unfortunately, he has been made to believe that all Muslims were terrorists. And I was beginning to believe that our children were better than their children. As you can see, then if you continue reading, it's a very simple poem. I've been listening to the wrong radio station. When I started, I was curious, but then it got serious. That is the point transformation happens. I was cool when I began. Now I really hate Iran. And look at me. Now I want to make friends with Pakistan and want to bomb Afghanistan. So ultimately, here a kind of realization comes in. I need someone to tell me where the hell is Kurdistan. Until I come to bomb your child, and I'm sure there is a continent called the Middle East. There is a continent called the Middle East, and I think I can bomb my way to peace. And I've been listening to the wrong radio station. So at the last part, the tempo, the rhyme. Actually, you must listen to this. There is the Jamaican rhythm coming in. I've been listening to the wrong jams. I've been listening to the wrong beats. I've been wrong zones. I have been listening to lies, spies, the wrong radio station. So ultimately, he towards the end, he says that how bad he has been brainwashed, and he says, as I am watching myself dying, I have been listening to the wrong radio station. He does not want to lead such a life, and listen to it. Can you hear? So if you look at this poem speaks about what was wrong with modern education, what's wrong with the West feeds our mind, and it's time for us to look into our own past, our own culture, and have a critical eye of what the media says. Okay, now we have come to the last part of this class, and if you have stayed up to this point, I really want to congratulate you, because you are a serious and a studious student who could stand this class. Thank you very much. And if you look at the form and language, he uses a non-standard syntax, lexicon, of the what you may call dub poetry, and it's also language used in the post-colonial societies. and it's emerging. It emerges from the everyday language and expression of the working class, the black people. So ultimately, he doesn't reinvent anything. He just takes it from their language and makes it a powerful poem. This is how we end the poem. So thank you very much for watching. If you really like this, think of subscribing and liking this channel. I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.